LL Cool J, welcome to Crazy Money.
What's up? What's up? What's going on? How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic, and I appreciate you being here.
Over.
We're about the same age. Let's go back to 1984. I'm 15 years old. I'm wearing braces and getting my butt kicked at freshman football practice, and I can barely even look girls in the eye at this point. I know I want to, but I can't quite do it. What's going on in your life that year?
Oh, 84. Well, 84 was the year when I put my first single out. So during the early part of 84, I was just really working on trying to get a deal and trying to make that happen. By mid 84, somewhere along there, I had ended up, linking up with Rick Rubin. I was sending demos out everywhere during that time. And finally, Ad Rock from the Beastie Boys heard my demo. He played it for Rick Rubin, and they thought it was good. So Rick gave me a call, and I ended up getting with Rick, and the rest is history, man. The label Def Jam was formed. He had a production company already. That's how I knew to send him a demo. So he had Def Jam Productions. They did a single on the Party Time label called It's Yours. I copied down that address and that number, sent the tape in, and here we are.
What kind of a 16-year-old has the gumption to think that he can make a living as a musician?
It's funny, man. To be quite honest, look, I was always ambitious, and I always wanted to live well on some level. And I obviously wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, but the goal wasn't just money. The goal was really to, for my voice to be heard, and for me not to be just another invisible guy, living in Queens and living in a city and just kind of just being invisible. So I just wanted to be heard. So, and I had a mother who always told me I could do anything I put my mind to. I had a grandmother who reinforced those same values. And so I had no fear. And, I've always been fearless about going after my dreams. And, at the end of the day, man, it's better to just go after your dreams, because, if they come true, great. And if they don't, at least you ain't taking them to the grave with you. You know what I'm saying? You did your best. So, that's what I did. You know what I'm saying? I just went all out.
So I read a quote from you that says the only thing that keeps you from your dreams is fear. Were you afraid of anything when you were 16 years old?
Yeah, I was afraid of not going after my dreams.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was afraid of just kind of, like I said, just being invisible, just being in that world of gunshots, stick up kids, drug dealers and nothing else. Cutting school, smoking weed, and just wasting your life away. As my grandmother would say, rocking your life away, sitting in a chair, that's what I didn't want to be. I just didn't want to be that guy. I felt like there had to be more to life than that. And, so and obviously in this country, that's like you're starting in the negative, right? So we gotta climb out of that. We got to get to an even playing field, and then we got to commence the race. So it was kind of like, you're already being lapped in life. You know what I'm saying? So you just got to go get it.
But you can do that if you go get a degree in accounting, right? I mean, that's one way to achieve financial autonomy and independence as a young person in America. But you back then said, I'm going to go all in, all out. What did success what in your wildest dreams, what would you have described as success looking like when you were that age?
Well, first, let me just say this. I think about the accounting thing. The reality is that autonomy? It can be if you start your own firm. It may not be if you choose to work for somebody and you just end up in a cubicle, right? So it all depends. Or now just working remotely in your house for the rest of your life for some guy's organization counting his money. So it's not necessarily the kind of autonomy I was looking for, right?
Right.
I know what you mean, though. I know exactly what you mean. Just kind of be safe, go to rails. I know what you're saying. Yeah. So, I understand that. So when you say, what was the second part? The second part was,
well, what in your wildest dreams when you're 15, 16 years old? I mean, before you get your deal, what would you think okay, that is success? 10 years later, is it $1 million? Was it,
No. And for me, success, was just hearing my record on the radio. Now, when we get to the money part, success was having a Benz, having a Mercedes Benz, having some gold chains on my neck, having fresh sneakers on my feet, having in those days a new VCR. Today would probably be an iPhone and a laptop, just having a new Mac and a new, and a phone, and your sneakers are right, and that's all it was really simple, because you're talking about a 16-year-old, right?
Sure, yeah.
So I got my first advance. I bought my mother a car, right? And I just got myself some jewelry and some trinkets and some sneakers and stuff like that. When I got a little bit more money, I bought my mother a house, and just stayed in the basement. Then I bought myself a car. So I've always kind of looked out for my mom. But success was just, back then it was really just about being able to buy the clothes you want, the car you want, and go and eat where you want. It was pretty basic. I wasn't yet at that level of thinking about, sophisticated investment strategies. And, I had a friend who used to, so funny, I had a friend who used to always talk to me about, oh man, you should just get a nice Magellan fund, right? Like, he was like the one guy in the neighborhood who was like kind of smart. And I used to be looking at him like a deer in the headlights, like, yo, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. All I know is I'm getting a car and I'm putting these chains on my neck. You talking to me about a Magellan fund? That meant nothing to me. Like, it was like speaking, he might as well have been speaking like some obscure dialect in Scandinavia somewhere. Like, I knew nothing about what he was saying. You know what I mean? But, as you grow and as you learn and as you stay curious, you realize that there are different moves that you can make and different things that can happen. But you also, quite frankly, have to be blessed enough or lucky enough, depending on how you see the world, to get enough bites at the apple to actually do the right thing. You know what I mean? Especially if you're not coming from a family environment where people are accustomed to having some money, accustomed to making, sophisticated investment decisions.
Right.
It's just a different world.
Did you make big mistakes with money when you first started making some?
Not really. Nothing, no massive blunders. I mean, I overspent a little bit and, had to, play catch up, and I was on extension, and, I did that. I played a little bit of that game, the extension game, but nothing really, really crazy. I never lived above my means. I never, bought like more house than I needed. I probably bought a few more cars than I needed, but that wasn't catastrophic. You know what I mean? In terms of the actual raw numbers that I was spending. So I did all right.
What was harder to handle, the money or the attention, as a 16, 18, 19-year-old, when you've got platinum records, you're on TV all the time? How'd you deal with all that?
That's an interesting question. I would say the money is probably a little bit harder to deal with, because it's a certain amount of money is easy to deal with, right? But when you get to that point where you have, like, gold digging receptionists calling you up saying, hey, don't tell anybody, but if you're really good, you can get a Rolls Royce. And you're looking at the phone like, why would I want a Rolls Royce? Like, but you don't know that you're not old enough yet to understand that this 30-something-year-old is like seeing you as a big fish. You know what I mean? Like, so the money is probably a little tougher in that instance. The attention can be really tough depending on what your family and life and your home life is like, right? Like, but all money and fame is going to do is show people more of who you are, right? Like, it's the biggest exclamation mark in the world. It puts you on front page, center stage of your universe, and people get to see your character. So, for me, the money generosity wasn't an issue. I never really been the selfish kind of guy. So, I never wore the money on my sleeve, even to this day. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing great. I'm doing fine, but I don't really, that's not how that's not what walks in the room before me. Like, it's kind of like I let my spirit and my character lead. So, it's just, you just gotta, my mother would tell me, Todd, girls don't like dummies. And she'd tell me, that, drugs ruin careers. My mother was like a psychologist, and I'm still 16, 17. So I'm listening. And I happen to be a kid that really listened to their parent. Like I really actually listened to my mother and my grandmother and them for the most part. I like actually listened. So I'd be like, oh, okay, I hear you. And I just have that. And then you bump into good people along the way, like, members of hip hop groups who are a little older, who might have been involved in some things and like said, nah, El, this ain't for you. And they would kind of put their hand out and give me the Heisman Trophy pose at those moments when I wanted to indulge.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's part of it. I got to give them credit too.
Well, that was where I was going to go with the next question. As I was reading up on your background and reminding myself of all the records you put out, I'm looking at the early days of Def Jam, and I'm learning about artists who released 1 or 2 records and were never heard from again. Was that wisdom and groundedness what kept you in the game all those years?
I got to tell you, Russell used to tell me, he used to have this statement, like when I make a big mistake, like a couple of times I missed video shoots and was out all night partying or hanging out.
It happens.
And he'd be like, it's your career. And there was something about it's your career that really had a lot of gravity with me, because I realized that this was an opportunity. And the more I did it, the more gravity it had. Like I used to ride by the high school at the beginning of my career and say, oh, I could still go back and be driving. And then, oh, I could still go back. And then one year I was like, yo, I'm actually too old to be in there now. I gotta actually focus. I gotta get on this. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like I just learned that, if you're gonna have a career, you gotta care about it, man. You gotta care about it, and you gotta be hungry, and you gotta be ambitious, and you gotta continue to dream. People, you have to continue to dream. You have to continue to dream. And you got to be trustworthy, and you got to be able to trust yourself. But the one thing that I also never did was I didn't approach the world of business in a Machiavellian way. And sometimes that's the safest space to be in, because a lot of times the schemers just end up overthinking themselves and they end up just self-destructing anyway. You know what I'm saying? It's like, Machiavelli, that whole style of thinking is like a recipe for disaster long term. You've never seen anyone who wins at it long term, ever. They always end up self-destructing. It's just like it's like a Roman candle. So, just being trustworthy and trying to do right by people kind of works. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that you got to be an idiot. I've done bad deals. I've done things that I wish I did better deals. So I'm not saying that, I'm not saying be foolish and just give away the store. I'm saying, but as you're doing business, you can have some character. And if you say you're going to do something, do it. And if you're not going to do it, don't agree to it. And I still move like that. And see, I can move like that if I'm hanging out with my billionaire friends. I can do that with my VC friends. I could do that with dudes right in the hood. I'm the same guy, no matter who I'm talking to. So I think that's important too. And I learned that, coming up as a young kid, just being around hustlers, because people, this is the Crazy Money podcast. So, people that watch this podcast understand VCs, they understand angel investors, they understand, scaling businesses, they understand a lot of sophisticated topics. But one thing about the street, you need integrity, right? And if you give somebody your word, you keep it. And guess what? That idea, that principle travels through at all levels, in any room. I don't care what room you walk in. I don't care if we're talking about putting 400 million in, 50 million, or 50,000, or 500. Keeping your word is part of it. So that's what I've tried to do along the way, especially, when you think about all the opportunities that you have to, wash white people out. And I just try to do right by people, give them their credit, give them their publishing, get mine, and then you can do tough deals. You can make strong deals. You should make deals that are win-win, but they should really be win-win.
Meaning you want people that you do business with to want to come back and do business with you again, because it was not just because you're LL Cool J, but because it was a good deal and it was affirmative in a life affirming way to work with good people and produce a good result.
100%. And I think, look, I can get in a lot of rooms with the name, but the character is what's going to keep you there. And it's results, which is going to, solidify those relationships and allow you to keep going and moving forward. I can get a lot of meetings, but what does that mean? It's like, I want to deliver. If I don't walk around the world of finance trying to talk people out of money. If I do business with someone, I'm doing it with them because I want us both to win. You know what I'm saying? This ain't like, I'm not trying to get from house to house or from car to car based on, grifting and playing games. No, but a lot of people, a lot of times people do live in that space. I'm trying to actually deliver. My goal is to deliver for the people that I do business with. So, that's part of it. And you got to have, I think, a higher purpose than just money. Like, there's nothing wrong with crazy money, but crazy money comes after crazy success.
Mm.
So the goal, we know LeBron is wealthy now. We know Jordan is wealthy now, but how many jump shots did they take in the driveway? And how hard did they work in high school? And how hard did they work in the gym? So the crazy success is the precursor, to crazy money, especially if you want it to have it long term. So you don't just skip and go right to the Super Bowl trophy. Like Tom Brady, he's talking about pliability and keeping his body right and staying right. Then we get to the money, right? So I kind of look at things in that space as well.
Yeah, Brady eats better and stretches more than me, so I can't worry about all the Super Bowl trophies I don't have in my house, right? I mean, that's
exactly.
Somebody
wrote a quote today. It was great. It said, don't complain about the things you didn't have because of the work you didn't do.
Right. I'd say it's like 1% God's fault for not giving me his arm, and then like 99% my fault for eating Twinkies for most of my life.
You know what I mean? There you go. So
how did you, as you're hot through all these years as a guy that makes records, did you have a sense of how amazing the opportunity you had was, and did that help you manage the trajectory you're on to do the right things in the business of music and the business of film and TV at the right times? Did you have a sense of kind of where you wanted to go and which were the steps to take at those respective times?
I think the real answer is that yes, with an asterisk. Yes, meaning it wasn't so much a product of education as it was just instinct. Instinct can take you a long way. I don't care how smart and how great you are as a hunter. You can wrap circles around me as a hunter. But if my instincts tell me that I shouldn't go over that hill and I don't, and you do, and a bear eats you, I'm good. I think Napoleon Bonaparte had a great quote. He said, he'll take a lucky general over a talented one any day. Right? And so having the courage to follow your instincts, I think is very, very important, especially when we talk about this area, right? Because finance is an area where people have a tendency to be hyper conservative or just like all out crazy, super risk it all, right? But a lot of times it's a really cerebral process, or they're kind of risking it, but a lot of times people are not necessarily following their instinct and their intuition. They're not letting that lead. And I always, as I was going throughout my career, would make this. So I'll give you an example of an instinctual decision that turned out to be a great business decision. So I'm sitting with a guy, and we're talking about me recording a new album. And so a part of this new album is they're going to give me an advance, which is would be a nice sum of money. To begin the process and to kind of get rolling, and you'll open up your budget, and I put money in my pocket. It's a great moment. Like, artists love it, right? At that time, it was a sizable amount for me at that time. And so when I asked him about, I'd like to get in advance, get rolling, he starts doing this. And I'm sitting there, and something told me right at that moment. I said, "Oh, I see how this is." So my very next phone call, I'm on the phone with Quincy Jones talking about, yo, what's up with some TV? Because he had kind of been broaching the idea to me. Let's do some TV. So me, Quincy Jones, David Salzman, rest in peace. We out there and we end up with a TV show in the house because instinctually, I knew that I was about to be a prisoner of this industry and a prisoner of this exec in his mind, his whims. I'd be at his whim because of the way he kind of, so that's an instinctual decision, right? But it ended up being a good thing because now many years later, when I look at the passive part of my income, not the aggressive, but the passive part of my income, a lot of it is because of those decisions, right?
Well, you said something earlier that I think is speaks deeply to the orientation you had. You said you weren't interested so much about the money that you could get from a record when you were a teenager. You wanted your voice to be heard. Those are very different things. And my theory, having been working on becoming a working stand-up comedian for 8 years of my life, the theory that if anybody's in the arts to try to make money, they're in it for completely the wrong reasons. If you're not in it for the idea that you can express whatever is inside you, then you're going to quit so much earlier than the money ever has a chance to show up, that you might as well just not even start. Right. So your instinct that you're in it to express yourself is very different than I'm in it for the bling, I'm in it for the Benzes and all that kind of stuff. And that's a long-term attitude. And the same could be said for business. If somebody's in it to get the short-term buck, they're going to do things that will make other people on the other side of the deal never want to do business with them again.
100%. And what I'll tell you is this, a lot of times, like, and there are some things, ways you can distinguish it, but be clear, like, I have absolutely been doing business since 1984. Like, a lot of times people, because you're an artist, they think, okay, well, you've been an artist since 1984. And maybe in some cases, but any artist that has longevity, that's been doing it a long time, you're doing business. And you have to make the same type of decisions that anybody would make, whether it's staffing, personnel, hiring the right people with the right domain expertise in the right areas of the business. Everything's the same. It's business, right? Tour decisions, promoter decisions. When are you pricing yourself out in the market? Are you selling yourself short? I mean, there are no differences, right? When a mistake happens, you have to pivot, you have to adjust, right? So this is what we do. But the thing is, you're right. It wasn't because I wanted to be looked at as some cool businessman. As a matter of fact, I've talked about this much less than some of my counterparts. My business, the business part of LL Cool J is not really something that people are really, really aware of like that. They kind of take me as a famous guy, kind of not for granted, but kind of that's LL and that's what he does and he's kind of here. I don't think they necessarily see, the decision-making process and what it has taken for me to go from 1984 to 2021 and be at the same height, either a greater height in different mediums, and kind of just, what that entails. So it is business, right? But you're right. You got to be passionate about it. You got to care about it. Like, when I started my company, Rock the Bells, I'm passionate about it. Like, I'm doing it, but I'm doing it for my love of the culture and my love for all of these other artists that put their time and their talents into this culture and what we built, right? Because I don't want 300-400 years from now for guys to be forgotten. I don't want people to look at this as some kind of fly-by-night thing that came and went, and the only people that are remembered are like 5 guys that were really, really popular at the height of the internet, and everybody else is forgotten, right? Because it's all about timing, right? So if it doesn't really matter, it's not only what you did, it's when you do it, and who witnessed it, and how it was kind of chronicled and kind of framed and boxed for the world. So I think that Rock the Bells and dealing with classic hip hop, dealing with this timeless culture, that's something that I can do, that I'm really passionate about, and I'm finding out ways to do it.
So Rock the Bells is your website that includes content about art, culture, hip hop, Black literature, commerce. It's a beautifully curated fashion site. Is that the culmination of all the things you care about brought to one place? I mean, besides your family and that kind of stuff, but from a culture perspective.
it's content, commerce, and experiences, right? The site is a home, but we extend beyond that, right? It's not just about a site. It really is a direct-to-consumer company that really focuses on hip hop culture, and we are tapped into, you know, the biggest and most important classic hip hop artists in the world, and they all are very supportive of what we're doing. I've given some equity in the company. And, you know, I've given, you know, Run DMC equity. I've given Salt and Pepper have equity. Eminem has equity. Fab Five Freddy, who took hip hop from uptown, downtown, has equity. Jonathan Mannion, the photographer, Roxanne Shante, Big Daddy Kane has equity. I mean, this is a really, really important, it's an important company for many reasons. And it's a channel on Sirius XM, channel 43. But the thing that I think is just important is that hip hop, you know, has fans, it has customers, it has people that love it. There are people who really, really, really enjoy and love what we do. And they deserve to be served like any other fan or customer and treated with that same respect. If I can see, you know, Paul McCartney on the cover of a magazine with Taylor Swift, why can't I see, you know, Ice Cube on the cover of a magazine with Meg Thee Stallion? You know, like I want this culture to be treated correctly. So that's why I do it. And that's why I'm passionate about it. And then we do that in different ways, right? Through content, touching that audience, through commerce, whether it be, you know, fashion products, through experiences, right now virtual, but once in the post-COVID world, those experiences will be, you know, in real life. So, you know, we rock it, you know, having fun.
You talk about wanting to make the culture part of the broader, respected at the level among the broader world. In 2017, you became the first hip hop artist to receive a Kennedy Center Award. What did that mean to you?
I mean, it was incredible. It's an amazing accomplishment, you know, because, you know, the Kennedy Center honors are rarefied air. We know that, you know, the biggest and most important artists in America get that award. And it's just that honor. And there's just no way around that. And I'm just, the beauty for me was not so much that it was me, although I'm really happy it was me, but it was being able to say, walk in the door like all of, you know, my fellow hip hop artists that, you know, I came up with. I'm thinking about Cool G Rap, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, the Fat Boys, and, you know, rest in peace, Prince Marky D and Buff, you know, I'm thinking about them. I'm thinking, you know, like, you know, Cool Rock Ski, and then, you know, even my, you know, rivals, Kumo D and Cannabis. And I'm thinking about all those guys, because when I get in there, that takes everybody in there. So, you know, it was an amazing feeling, man.
So in what ways besides Rock the Bells, you know, now you're on top? I mean, you've got everything that everybody wants, right? I'm not saying you have everything in the world, that in your life's perfect. I'm just saying that you are a wealthy man. You have power. You have visibility. How do you invest those things? The responsibility of having those things, how do you invest them to make a difference in the world?
Well, you know, there's a couple of things, right? First of all, I think when you say invest, you talk about investing in responsibility and investing your power, your influence or power, so to speak. I think that's by making choices that are going to make the world a better place, and by making choices that are going to lift up people. It's not about, you know, there's nothing wrong with wanting a return, right? Like, I'll give you an example. When the book about Elon Musk first came out, I guess it was about 5, 6, 7 years ago. You know, that biography book. I think it says Tesla and SpaceX on the cover or something like that, or SpaceX. But it's a book about Elon Musk. It was the first biography. When that came out, when I read that book, I liked his philosophy. So I said, you know what? I like the way this guy thinks. I like the things that this author is saying about him. I'm going to go out and invest in Tesla.
Good call.
But I didn't invest in Tesla because, I got a itchy trigger finger for money. And I said, you know what? I believe in this guy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put some money in this, right? But remember, you know, and I got that thinking about Warren Buffett when he says, look at management, right? What do you think of the management? How do you believe in them, et cetera? Now, obviously, I don't know him personally, but I like this book's take on him. So I said, you know what? Let's do that. You know, I didn't know him personally then, right? So I did it. So there you go.
Yeah, 9 years ago, I test drove a Porsche 911. I thought, well, this is cool, but I don't need this car. Then I got in a Tesla and I drove it, and I was like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever driven, and I want to be a part. I want to be a part of the change they're trying to create in the country. And what I wish I would have done is, instead of buying the car, buy the stock and just let it ride.
Yeah, well, that comes with it. Look. You know what? You live and learn. But what I've learned to do is I've always kind of, I'm very curious, and so I pay attention. You have to just pay attention. Like in the military, they call it seeing around corners, right? I'm on NCIS LA, so you got to be able to try to see around corners a little bit. So that's what I try to do. So in terms of so coming back to your question, my point is that you when you go with things with your spirit in that regard, and when you go after things that you think are interesting, and when you do things from the heart, and you work with people that you like and trust, and you kind of, it has a way of working itself out. The key though is just not to be, every year, around Christmas time, I watch, Christmas Carol. You never want to be Ebenezer Scrooge. You don't want to, squeeze the nickel until the eagle screams, right? Like you just gotta live a little bit. So that's kind of, how it's been for me.
There's a lot that's been going on in America in the last year. And when you go to Rock the Bells, you see the culture is presented, and some of the literature and some of the commentary on what's happening politically and in society is presented there very subtly, as if to let the consumer say, oh, what is this? Let me find it. What would it mean to empower more Black people economically in the United States? And how do we do that?
Well, I think, look, I think the first thing we have to, there are a lot of ways to look at this conversation, right? You got the Thomas Sowell school, and you got the Noam Chomsky school, right? So, it's all about how you look at it. So, for me, I think it's kind of, it's a combination, of things. I think that, being rational about the decisions that are made is an important piece. And that's really tough to do. So let me break it down in a way where I think that people can understand where I'm at with it. I think that Blacks definitely need to be empowered. But I think that part of, being empowered is empowering yourself too. That doesn't mean that there are no flaws in the system, because we know there are. And that doesn't mean that there's a little lag time, a little latency in the treatment of Black people within the system.
A few hundred years latency, yeah.
Yeah. And I know, guys like Ben Shapiro, they want to talk you off the ledge as soon as you bring up systemic racism, and, but it exists. All right. Whether you want to say it's in the form of a human being as opposed to an agency. Okay, Ben, I get it. You know what I'm saying? Okay, but it still exists in some form. There has to be a side effect of all of those years. You can't enslave people for hundreds of years and think there's zero side effects because you ended slavery. That's like me laying in your bed, me strapping you to your bed for a year and a half, and then taking the straps off and saying, you're free now.
Go run a marathon.
Are you going to jump up and do a marathon?
Yeah.
So when you hear people say that there's zero systemic, that's a problem. Now, the flip side of that is that I don't think it's wise to use that as an excuse to hold yourself back, to unintentionally hold yourself back, because you, in the back of your mind, that that's kind of a thing that's out there, right? Like I want people to be hungry, you know what I mean? But I was taught a long time ago by a hustler. This guy, his name was Ronnie Bump. He was a big time, hustler in Queens. And he told me, I was in a park. I was a little kid, maybe 14, 15. He said, let me tell you something. When you come in the park, come like this. Don't come like this. In other words, make a contribution. Don't come looking for a handout. So what I would say is I would say, even with everything that's going on, I think it's up to us to think about how we can make a contribution to our kids, to our family, to our community. Learn more, be more, dream more, do more. You know what I'm saying? That's how it's done. What I don't want to see happen is I don't want Black people to make the mistake of demonizing, you know, all the whites or a certain segment of white society either. I don't think that that's the way to bring us together, because everybody is different and everybody thinks about it different. Sometimes, you know, there are a lot of schools of thought. Some people think that, you know, some people feel like if you give a person a fish, you're not really helping them, right? Some people feel like if you teach them to fish, you're helping them. Some people think, but but if the guy's really starving and his ribs are touching, maybe you should give him a fish and give him some sustenance and then teach him how to fish. So there's a lot of ways we can think about this thing. But, you know, ultimately, I think that, you know, for Blacks to be more empowered in the country, you just have to, and for humans in general, you have to be more educated. You got to be more focused on your dreams, more focused on your goals, and then you go from there. You know what I'm saying? And you got to really just go after it. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. Absolutely. Yeah. One last question, because I know you got to go. And again, thank you so much for doing this. LL Cool J, how do you define success?
I think success is setting your goal, whatever that may be, and achieving it, right? And being pleased with that result, feeling good about those results, whatever they may be. And that's the other thing I would caution people: don't live your life comparing yourself to other people. You know, everybody's not going to be, you know, Jeff Bezos. That's okay. Everybody's not going to be, you know, Steph Curry. That's okay. Be who you are. You know what I mean? Be the best version of yourself. You know, that's success, right? Maximizing your potential, your personal potential, and then helping to maximize, and then helping the others around you to do the same. I think that's success.
That's awesome. Great place to leave it. Thank you so much thank you. Sorry. Thank you, LL Cool J, so much for joining us. We will send people to rockthebells.com. And thanks again for joining us.
My pleasure, Paul. One love, baby.
Take care. Peace. Thanks, Todd.
My man. Peace.
Bye-bye.